Are you unsure on how to use some of these new Pokemon competitively? Well, allow me to lend you a helping hand. Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about a Pokemon that people probably don't understand is really strong, and that is Bellibolt. Bellibolt has the potential to do an absurd amount of damage, and I'll explain that to you as we go through this video. I just wanted to quickly interrupt the video for a moment to remind you guys to subscribe. It does so much for me and it's free, so hit the button. Now back to the video. Now when we look over at the stats, the first thing we'll notice is something that we've been noticing a lot lately. It seems like most Paldean Pokemon have a lot of natural bulk, and Bellibolt is definitely no exception. With a base HP stat of 109 and decent defense and a mediocre special defense that can definitely work with a hefty HP stat, this Pokemon is going to be able to take some pretty good hits. Without any defense investment and just HP, you can actually survive a super effective Earthquake from Garchomp in a doubles format. That's something that's very, very handy. The special attack is nothing incredible, but 103 is something we can definitely work with, especially with the ability, and I'll go into that in a moment. But first we'll talk about the speed. 45 speed is a really interesting amount of speed. You're very good under Trick Room, which is great. We do have some sets for that in this video, but you fall just short of being amazing under Tailwind, though you're actually 1 point of speed away from being able to outspeed Dragapult under Tailwind, which is really unfortunate, but it doesn't mean that you're no good. The attack stat is nothing to really worry about. You do get access to Sucker Punch, but you're likely not going to be using it. Now let's talk about the abilities, and there is a really amazing one that is unique to this Pokemon called Electromorphosis. This ability means you become charged when you take direct damage, doubling the power of your next electric attack. This makes you hit so incredibly hard. With certain sets, I have one-shot Pokemon like Appleton, which is a 4 times resist with Thunderbolt. You also have Static, which is an amazing ability, giving you the chance to paralyze your opponents if they make contact with you. And then we have Damp. Now Damp is very niche. It stops moves like Explosion, Mind Blown, Misty Explosion, Self-Destruct, etc, but it's not something you'll use quite often. You can definitely use this when you're trying to catch those kinds of Pokemon, and there'll be certain metagames where they'll have a little bit of relevance, but we're not going to have any sets that utilize this ability today. So let's dive into our first set. Now this is probably my favorite set to play on the Pokemon. This is a weakness policy Electromorphosis set. We're running a negative speed nature because we want to be fast under Trick Room, though we are running 4 EVs in speed, and I'm going to tell you why. You see, the most likely Pokemon that you'd pair this with would be Oranguru and Farigiraf. Farigiraf because it stops priority and it's able to get up Trick Room. It's also able to use Bulldoze, which can proc both your Electromorphosis and Weakness Policy. The next Pokemon you'd like to pair it with would be Oranguru, and that's because Oranguru gets Telepathy, meaning that you won't hit it with a move like Discharge. It also again gets access to Bulldoze, and you want this Pokemon to be able to go before you under Trick Room to activate the Weakness Policy and Electromorphosis so you can do more damage. Now don't worry about the fact that Oranguru wants to go after you with Instruct, because after it hits you with the Bulldoze, it will become slower than you under Trick Room, so you'll be able to outspeed it and it will get those Instructs off. This Pokemon is such a devastating threat. I uploaded a clip to Twitter of me just completely one-shotting everybody with this thing, and it's really fun to play and really strong as well. Thunderbolt is great single target damage, Discharge just wipes the field away, and Muddy Water is great because otherwise you can't touch ground types at all. We do have Protect because this Pokemon is playing as your sweeper and you really want to keep it safe whenever you can. We're going Terra-type Electric because we want to boost our electric damage even more, since that's kind of the entire gimmick of this Pokemon. A move like Thunderbolt that has 90 base power will be doubled if you Terastallize because of the stab that you naturally get. Now that tied in with 2 times damage becomes so incredibly devastating, so I highly recommend going Terra Electric on this Pokemon. And with an EV spread like this, where you just maximize special attack and bulk, you will be able to wipe teams out pretty well if you get this set up. Bellibolt has the potential to be one of the most devastating Pokemon. It does have that problem dealing with the ground types a little bit, but you can definitely build your team around around that, and you can take those out with other team members and focus on just wiping the rest of the board with this thing. Now we get on to the next set, and this is the Tailwind set that I was telling you about earlier. Now with 244 EVs in speed, you can outspeed things that are Zacian speed level. It's not currently in the game, but there are other Pokemon quite close like Barraskewda, so having this much speed will have you kind of future-proof because you can't outspeed Dragapult. There's no point just wasting those little extra EVs there. You can if you want to, just because it's easier, but you may as well get that one little extra chance of survivability by putting the rest of the points spread across your defenses. Now we're maximizing special attack again and going with a timid nature because this is going to act in a similar way, but it's more of a life orb attacker under Tailwind. And because we're fast on this set, we're actually running Soak to deal with those ground types. We're not planning to run anything special with this Pokemon other than Tailwind. We're not going to have telepathy and ground types everywhere because we're not going to make it a gimmick. So we're using a single target move like Thunderbolt. We're using Muddy Water for just good spread damage across the board and not having to worry about hitting our own team. And then we'll have Soak to deal with certain Pokemon, making them water types, allowing us to deal with them accordingly. Now Soak's application isn't just so you can hit them with thunder moves. Turning a Pokemon like Amoonguss into a water type lets your own Amoonguss spore it. It's really powerful to use on a Pokemon that's fast, and on this build we're going for fast. I've definitely had a lot more fun with the first build, but this build definitely works in a lot more situations and is pretty versatile. Speaking of versatile, let's go into the next set. Now this set is pretty cool and it lets Bellibolt do something really interesting. So Bellibolt gets access to Thunder Wave and Eerie Impulse, two amazing moves in a doubles format. Thunder Wave is great speed control, slowing down an enemy, also prohibiting them from being able to move sometimes. It's a really strong move. Then we have Eerie Impulse, which can really cripple a lot of those special attackers. Right now, it's mainly physical attackers running the Clear Amulet to deal with things like Intimidate. Eerie Impulse is going to hit those vulnerable special attackers and lower their damage output. We're running Parabolic Charge as our offensive move so we can have a little bit of sustain and be annoying and stay on the board. We have Protective Course to keep us nice and safe as we want this thing to stay around and cripple opponents as much as possible. For that reason, we're running the Citrus Berry and we're running Static. Static, as I mentioned, has a chance to paralyze opponents if they make contact with you. That means if your opponents are trying to remove you, they may end up just getting themselves paralyzed and causing better speed control for your team. I love when a Pokemon has versatility like this. We even have the Terra type of Water if we want to Terra, because on this set we'll probably Terra a little more defensively, and Water is just such an incredible defensive type. The EV spread on this one is a little more specific. We've maximized our HP because we want to stay on the board and be bulky, though we're using a Calm Nature and 156 EVs in special defense to ensure that we never get 2-hit KO'd by Hydreigon's Earth Power. We then dump the rest of the points into special attack to make sure we just have a decent damage output, and the remaining IVs into defense and speed. This set is really cool and really fun. It's a different way to play Bellibolt and it's actually very effective. Having something bulky like this on the board, crippling the opponent, can really help the rest of your team get ahead. Now this set here is really fun. This is an Assault Vest set. Now just for an idea of how bulky this actually is, with max HP and an Assault Vest, a Sassy Nature, and 108 EVs in special defense, it takes more than 4 Shadow Balls from Goldengo to KO us. This is a very bulky Pokemon. As I said, we don't really need defense investment. We already live Earthquakes from things like Garchomp and even Dondozo with the Tatsugiri in its mouth. So we dump the rest into special attack because we want to hit a little hard with moves like Thunderbolt and Parabolic Charge. Now with this set, we're actually running Electromorphosis because we want to get our moves boosted. Parabolic Charge will double in power if we take any damage, meaning we can heal a lot from that move. We can stay on the board and again cripple and do damage, though in a different way. With this set, instead of running moves like Eerie Impulse and Thunder Wave, we're running Acid Spray and Chilling Water. Chilling Water is a move that will lower the enemy's attack stat by 1 stage. This can be really useful in crippling the opponent and doing some good chip damage. We've also got Acid Spray, which helps not only your allies but you as well. Hitting an enemy with this will lower their special defense by 2 stages, pretty much cutting it in half. Hitting an enemy with this will lower their special defense by 2 stages. If you hit an enemy with this move, then get a boosted Thunderbolt or Parabolic Charge onto them, you are going to do an absurd amount of damage. Not to mention, if it's paired with a special attacker, it is even stronger. This is definitely a set that has a lot of potential and something pretty niche to this Pokemon. We're back to going Terra Electric with this build because when we're running Electromorphosis, it just makes sense to boost those electric type moves even further. The versatility of this Pokemon is pretty amazing, and I think that Bellibolt is something that's a little bit slept on. Now I want to go into a singles set. Now any of these sets I've mentioned could be played in singles. They are very strong. All you'd have to do is swap out Protect for another attacking move, and they're all pretty viable. Though this set here is something that I think Bellibolt can do really well, and that is set up screens. Now we've maximized HP and we've evened out our defenses to give us really good bulk across the board. We're also running a sassy nature. Now the reason for this is we want to be slow. The main job of this build is to get up screens and swap into another Pokemon. We're running Light Clay to keep those screens up further, and we're running the screens, of course, Light Screen and Reflect. In single battles, this will halve the damage that enemies do to our team. This is a really strong tool to have on certain setup or hyper offense teams. Now we're running Slack Off to get a bit of recovery. This reminds me of the Tapu Koko screen builds that love to run Roost. And then we're also running Volt Switch. Now because of that sassy nature and that really low speed, we're gonna likely be Volt Switching after our opponents press their button, meaning we can safely swap something in behind screens once they're set up. That's the benefit of having a slower pivoting move. Now we're running Static as the ability. Again, if an opponent tries to hit us, they're gonna become paralyzed, and that is really good for whatever we're switching into. We're running Terra Dark here in case we run into some prankster Pokemon. We don't want to let them taunt us, so we want to be able to get off our screens. I think this set has a lot of potential for setting up for your sweepers. Before I decided to make this video, I hadn't really had a competitive look at Bellibolt, but I sat down today and I tried out so many different sets, and I've kind of fallen a little in love with this Pokemon. Let me know in the comments if you've been trying out Bellibolt. Were you on this wave before I even thought about it? Let me know if this video's changed your mind and made you want to try it out. As always guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and have a wonderful day.